young man. They're best buddies. They probably sleep in the same room.
Wow.
Yeah. So let's talk about this guy a little bit. This guy is an apex predator, and so is the alligator, the American alligator. This guy can grow 12 feet in his first 4 years of life. So if you guys will look to the top of this roof, this is almost 12 foot.
Wow.
Now, how many 4-year-olds do you know that are that tall? That's not in its life. That's by the time it's 4. So these guys can get 18 to 20 foot long. Well, anytime you put two apex predators in the same spot, bad things happen. This is a bad thing. This is, you know, the alligators again have been here for 200 million years. Burmese pythons have not. And if you guys see this picture here, this one was really big in the media a couple of years ago. This is the head of a python way over here. Comes all the way around. This is all its belly scales, and over here is the rest of its belly scales. And here is the remains of an alligator. Now, how did this happen? The way they think it happens is since alligators are cold-blooded, kind of solar-powered, they have the ability in the wintertime to slow their heartbeat down to 3 beats per minute. Well, when these constrictors, these pythons, wrap you up, they're not waiting for you to stop breathing. They're waiting to stop feeling a pulse. So it thinks the alligator is dead. It goes to swallowing it. Halfway through, the alligator changes his mind, and they both wind up dying. When two apex predators get together like that, it's usually really bad. So that's kind of what happened. So where did all these pythons come from? How did they get out here? You guys remember Hurricane Andrew? Yeah, pretty much did a number down on South Florida. What happened to all the pet stores and the zoos and everything like that? Well, of course, they caught the rhinos and the lions and tigers and bears, but the animals that could survive in the Everglades and in the swamps, they did. They survived. And that's the problem that they're having. What about this guy? We saw one of these guys on the fort tour today. What do you guys think about the Gopher Tortoise? Yay! Everybody says good. So I'm going to tell you guys a little bit about the Gopher Tortoise. Now remember when we were talking about maturity levels? Look how long the Gopher Tortoise has before it matures. 10 to 15 years. Let's say this guy lives to be 10 years old and he has a clutch of 10 eggs. Out of that 10 eggs, only one of them is actually going to make it. So the cat and the pig, they've all been breeding like crazy since they were 6 and 20 months old. This guy's waited and waited and waited, has one baby. But they're known as a keystone species. That's kind of why they're so significant and so important. Anybody know what a keystone is? Anybody ever been over to London or seen those aqueducts with those brick bridges? It kind of look like this, where they have the bridge with all the rocks placed in them. Well, this last rock that goes in is called a keystone. Without that, all the rest of them fall apart, right? So it's kind of elementary concept. I don't know how they stack all the other ones up there like that, but I know if you pull that one, it'll fall apart. So with a keystone species, and the Gopher Tortoise digs this 40-foot burrow, 15 foot deep sometimes, all these other critters can live in here. And they will all visit in there. Times of fire, when the wildfires used to run through Florida, they would all hide underground. If they couldn't fly away or outrun it, they'd hide underground. So there's been several species of animals documented coming out of these Gopher Tortoise holes after wildfires and stuff like that. So they're very important to our community. Unfortunately, a long time ago, these guys were a big source of food. Right after the Great Depression, when the stock market crashed, these guys don't move real fast. People were traveling all from city to city looking for food, looking for work. They found meals with the Hoover chickens, they used to call them. Hoover chickens. You guys remember Herbert Hoover? All you young people should definitely not remember Herbert Hoover. Looks like a tasty little morsel, right? How can you not want to eat this guy? I would never eat this guy. But 80 years ago, during the Depression, these guys were everywhere. They were all over the place. And Herbert Hoover, when he entered the White House, stock market crashed, people were looking for jobs, nobody had money, didn't know where they were going to get food or shelter from. So unfortunately, yeah, there's a ton of bats out right now. So unfortunately, people were eating the Hoover chickens, the Gopher Tortoises, until these guys came along. Anybody know anything about these guys? CCC? These guys came along, which meant no more eating the chickens. Now the CCC, the contributions that they had, you might be asking, okay, Park Ranger, what's all this got to do with creatures? Well, when the Civilian Conservation Corps came along, they did things like open parks. They opened this park. They built this park in 1936. We were one of the first 4 state parks built in the state. It was because of the Civilian Conservation Corps. These guys came in, some of the contributions, they weren't just a bunch of like tree planting, park opening guys. We appreciate them for doing that because now I have a job and you guys all have somewhere to be. But some of the other contributions, how many of you have been out on the suspension bridge? Suspension bridge was built by the Civilian Conservation Corps, along with 46,000 other bridges. They did things like put fire towers all over the country, not just in Florida. Over 8 million hours of fighting fires. A lot of the same practices that we use today when we're fighting wildfires, we learned from the Civilian Conservation Corps. They planted over 3 billion trees. It's a lot of trees, a lot of trees. And they put up terracing, they did flood control, they ran telephone wire. These guys were huge in doing a lot of things that helped keep something as precious as the gopher tortoise around. So these guys are good. Everybody who said that that was good was good. So we mentioned a couple of key terms tonight. We mentioned natives and we mentioned exotics. You guys want to know what an exotic is? Anybody awake?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Anything that would be considered not native. Think that guy's exotic or native?
Yeah.
Yeah. I've never seen one of those in the park. I'm just saying it, probably doesn't belong here. So what is an invasive? There's a difference between invasive and exotic. An invasive means it's tending to spread or infringe, or that invades a habitat to the detriment of the native species. So we're going to do a little experiment. I want everybody to raise your hand if you were born on planet Earth and keep it up. Okay, if you were born in the United States, keep your hand up. If you were born in Florida, keep your hand up. If you were born in Thonotosassa, keep your hand up. If you were born in Hillsborough River State Park, let me see your hands. Okay, so we're all invasives, right? But here's the difference. Unless you guys are coming here, chopping up trees and pulling all the dead wood out, making your campfires, and you're lighting fires, or you're spray painting all our pavilions and everything, unless you're coming here to the detriment of other species, then you're not really an exotic invasive. You guys come here, you enjoy the park, you clean up after yourselves, and then you go home. So you guys aren't really considered invasives. So how did all these different creatures get here? A lot of different ways. We've talked about a couple of them. Some of them travel together. They hitch a ride on other animals, like ticks, chiggers, fleas, all of those things. Luckily, we don't really have any of those things here at Hillsborough River. I'm not saying this happened, I'm just saying it could. You get animals hitching rides on other animals. A little spider on top of a frog, on top of a turtle. I didn't take that picture, I'm just saying it probably could maybe happen, sort of. Some of them escape, right? We talked about Hurricane Andrew, and we talked about pet stores. Hurricane Katrina was the same thing. When these big storms come through and they just, destroy communities, what happens to all the animals in the zoos and the pet stores and everything? They get out. Some of them just escape. Anybody ever been in the Navy? Anybody ever been on a cruise ship? Okay, almost all of you guys. So when you're sitting at the cruise ship and you've already got your drink in hand, you're waiting to get underway, and you see all this water pouring out of the sides of the ship, that's all ballast water. They use that, they suck in all that water to help stabilize the ship, and then what happens is you go from here, you go over to the Bahamas, they let all that water out. And when they get ready to leave the Bahamas to go to Mexico, they suck in all new water. They go to Mexico, they dump it all out. So there's thousands of little organisms that they're sucking through that ballast water. They're not doing it on purpose. It's just a casualty. It's just something that happens. That's a whole bunch of stuff you guys don't have to read because I just told you. See how much I love you? All right, so what does it cost us? Everybody wants to know, bottom line, what does it cost me? These are all some of the numbers. That's the Department of Agriculture, Consumer Science. That's us, Department of Environmental Protection. All these different places, water, fish and wildlife. That's what all it costs from 2003 to 2004. So how much is that total? Believe it or not, it's going to shock you guys, that's more than I make in a year. That's how much it costs in that 1 year. That's what it costs all of us to get rid of and to help fight off all of these invasive exotics. So why is that important to us? Well, in the Park Service, the reason that we want to get rid of it is because it's kind of our mission statement to care about this stuff. They invade and destroy all of this stuff. When you get so many invasive exotics come in here, they start doing damage to the campgrounds, then you guys don't want to come here anymore, and none of us are happy then. So the Florida Park Service mission statement is to provide a resource-based recreation while preserving, interpreting, and restoring all of our natural and cultural resources. So all of you guys that went over to the fort today, that's a cultural resource. If we just let everything overgrow and let all the exotic animals in there, you guys wouldn't want to go there anymore. Same thing with the campgrounds. We let everything grow up, you guys aren't going to want to come there anymore. So bottom line, who gets to stay? Who do you think gets to stay? How do we determine what animals get to stay and which ones don't? If they came on a natural migration over thousands and thousands of years, either through flock or, this has always been their nesting site, and they've just kind of traveled here from the beginning of time, well, then they get to stay. And as you guys know, all the creatures that come to Florida, they all get happy, right? And when you have happy creatures in Florida, then everybody's happy. I did take all of these. No, I didn't really take all these. So everybody that gets to stay in Florida, everybody that gets to stay in this little old town called Fenona-Sasset, Hillsborough River State Park, everybody's happy, right? Okay. So I know my little telepathy kicked in, and I know that you guys are all screaming in your head, Ranger Brian, how can we help? How can we help? I'm going to give you a couple ideas. One of them is you don't release your pets. For fish, you can take them back to aquariums. You can take them back to the fish stores. Any kind of pets like that, dogs, cats, whatever, if you don't want it, a lot of people think, well, we're going to give it a fighting chance and I'm just going to go let it loose in a park. You did give it a fighting chance, but unfortunately you took the chance away from some of the natives by doing so. So there's always alternatives. If you call around and you look, there's always alternatives on what you can do with your pets. Ranger Brian, it wasn't good enough. I still want to help. I got your answer. Don't ignore all the creatures. While you guys are out walking around and you're finding stuff, if you don't know what it is, maybe get a book. There's a lot of books on the library. Everybody's got smartphones. You can Google it. Or you can just come and ask a park ranger. We love being challenged with, hey, what is this? That's kind of why we're out here roaming around all the time. We love identifying stuff. And if we don't know, then it's kind of like it's never been documented before and we have to go research it and look it up. So anytime we can help, we will. Another great way that you guys can help out is through volunteering. There's not a whole lot of age requirements or work requirements on volunteering. You guys can come and help out at the fort. You guys can come and help out at the park. Believe it or not, the park wouldn't really stay open if it wasn't for years and years worth of volunteers and some of their contributions. We've had over 6,000 volunteers in the Florida State Park system. That's a lot of people that come and donate their time. That equates to 581 full-time park ranger positions. That's a lot. So that's all I have for you guys. You guys have been great. And if anybody has any questions, I will be here for a little bit. Anybody got any questions so far? No? Well, let me remind you, the fort tour tomorrow is at 11 o'clock. It'll pick you up at the pool, parking lot 4. It's only $2. You get your ticket in the cafe. It's about an hour and a half, so we'll be done and back in time for you guys to close up and get checked out. Thanks for coming out, everybody.